You don't need to feel productive in order to be massively productive. The worse you feel right now, but still do it, the more adaptable and capable and powerful you are. So I remember last week when I was supposed to edit one of these videos, but somehow there was an invisible force preventing me from doing it. I went from a long walk instead, cleaned up the apartment, watched 30 YouTube videos, tried to do every single possible micro short that was out there except for the one thing that would actually progress me forward. And then when hours passed and I frantically tried to clear the endless watch later list, I suddenly realized why I was doing all of that to myself. I did not feel ready. I had this illusion that I had to be ready in order to sit down, ready to all these creative snap decisions that you do when you're creating work, and ready to muster up this mental fortitude to blast through the session. And I did not feel it. I felt that there was still one more thing to do, a few more hours to rest and a few more minutes of consumption on YouTube again. And I think that most people think in the same way. They put off these non-urgent but important activities until they feel motivated and ready to tackle them. And when all the green lights are up simultaneously and when the stars are aligned or whatever, they want to wait until they're not as sleepy as now, despite having over 9 hours of sleep every night. So it's not a sleep thing, although it can be for some circumstances. Because who would want to sit there and staring at themselves and not be prepared enough and ashamed for even existing on this earth? Or maybe that is the way out of the conundrum. As I was sitting there in the couch, I remember 2 years ago when I used to play Pokemon Go 6 to 14 hours a day, especially in November 2020. I would walk every morning for 3 to 4 hours straight and then continue playing the game for the rest of the day and become quite good at it after 4 years. But sure, there was a lot of sunny days where it felt really good to walk there and it was very nice to overall play it, but there were also many bad days with tons of wind and heavy rain and even worse, rain and heavy wind combined. Combined with some extreme cold too, and now you got the ultimate trouble. But I still showed up. I wanted to deliver all the daily gifts and rack up the total XP amount because I was very into XP back then. For the day, regardless of weather, I was out there doing it because I had this mission and I wanted to set the daily standard for myself and ultimately reach all these milestones that I had to do. And it was not in my power to control whether I wanted to be sunny and not cold and stuff like that, but it was in my power to respond to it. So if it so needed multiple umbrellas and a lot of swear words in that matter, I sort of could do it anyway. And once I fully internalized this freezing cold hand, this wet screen that you can't really do anything with, the overall fatigue around the chest area, but still moving forward, it felt like I was somewhat in a trance state, like in peace. Or in a zone, call it that matter. Nothing could stop me from doing whatever I wanted, and I did not need permission from any outside influence, but felt extremely powerful instead. I was beating the weather and still showed up no matter what happened. So when I sat there and realized how much I was capable 2 years ago compared to now, it felt like this slump, like this fluctuation of energy and productivity, did not really matter anymore. I suddenly remembered how much I was capable, really. Am I really so powerless that I need stuff like motivation and green lights and stars to depend on it? Could I use whatever little energy I had to simply forge ahead no matter what happened? And a lot of elite performers actually think the same way. Josh Waitzkin, world chess champion, martial arts expert and author, once said, quote, "In performance training, first we learn to flow with whatever comes. Then we learn to use whatever comes in our advantage. And finally we learn to be completely self-sufficient and create our own earthquakes. So a mental process feeds itself explosive inspiration without the need for outside stimulus." So I decided right then at that couch to create my own earthquake. I disregarded all notions that motivation and readiness even existed. I got up and did what I said I was going to do, and it felt good and it felt satisfying. And to this day, I never had productive slumps ever again. Even during this winter at -3 degrees Celsius, I still write by walking. I trained my hands to cold exposure because I am too powerful for this motivation thing to prove to myself I can still show up. And you are too powerful too. So as you watch this video, you might be in one of these productive slumps. But whether you feel ready or not, it does not matter. Just do it anyway and let the mistakes be valuable information what to focus on. Which is actually how you progress forward, at least if you trust neuroscience. This form of exposure therapy towards all the unpleasant things is the ultimate way to overcome them, really. Just be there and let the fear sort of wear off trying to sort of take you down but realize that you can't and just backing off instead. You win against your fear. Instead of just hiding in the corner or hiding in the sofa and giving it power, you're sort of taking the upper hand and claiming your own birthright of greatness. So in a way, as long as you move forward, you cannot really lose. Either you win or you see the feedback as is, like learning from them. Just accumulate all the failures, all the rejections, all the fears as trophies, and not a sign of who you are right now, but as a stepping stone for the person you want to be. And the positive feeling of becoming 1% better, 2% better, 3% better, even 10% better every single day is accelerating. And yeah, I know it sounds very motivational at this point, but maybe it's a great help. But I believe that we are too much in our own heads and making it much harder than it needs to be. Instead of casting blame to outside forces, we can awaken our own powers within, not needing all that stuff. So I recommend you actually to stop watching this video, go to whatever you want to do and then do it. And regardless of how you feel, you prove your power and discipline, and this is what matters most.